Prologue. The sun's rays reamed the evergreens, burning down on every scrape, every bruise, every rip in her once stately dress. Barefoot she fled over rocks and brambles, each stumble grinding wounded bones anew. Red-brown hair, unwashed for days, whipped across her pale, pretty face. Air screamed through her burning lungs as she gasped, as her wide blue eyes flew from tree to jagged tree. They were close behind her now. Closer, hungrier. They howled. The twisted screams thundered in her ears, pounded her skull, stole her balance away. She knew, without looking, without raising her ears to the din of the charge, that they rushed alongside her now, sleek and sharp and larger than the largest man. The sun stabbed her in the eyes, half blinded her. Still she fled, arms over her face as she flew headlong into wood and stone. A tree clipped her elbow. A branch raked her hair. Shouts rang in her ears. Another howl seized her heart. And the curtain of the forest gave way, left her skidding to a halt on a tapering cliff. The evergreen sea rolled on below, at the bottom of a drop she dared not gauge, and broke against a red horizon. Directly beneath her, hidden under the crumbling precipice, a waterfall sent up a low, steady roar. From the forest behind her, there was only silence. She cast her eyes about. Hundreds of strides to the north, the cliff's wall became a slope, steep, but perhaps not impassable. If they'd lost her trail, had they? Could they have? She could return to the trees, make her way onward. The snapping branches burned her hopes to ash. First the men appeared, 4 of them, rough and unshaven, their fine arms and armor belying their poor man's speech. The tallest among them, broad of shoulder and brandishing a serrated spear, leered out with a gap-toothed smile at the rip across the bosom of her pink satin dress. The pigmen, what some called Bacchus, came stumbling out behind them. Fat as taxmen and half as fair, the pair of them advanced on rounded, stumpy legs. Taking positions behind the men, they taunted her with snorts and grunts as they pounded their spears against the earth. She gazed at one, then another, all the while aching for breath. Shoulder to shoulder, the men advanced, walling off what remained of her escape route. As a cool updraft whirled past her legs, the wolves arrived. They were 2, one with a coat like liquid gold, the other smooth silver. On 2 legs, each as thick as her waist, they stood like boulders. Their hands, clawed and easily large enough to crush her neck with aplomb, flexed in anticipation. Though built like men, their heads were larger in proportion to their shoulders, and their many-fanged jaws stretched from just below their white gleaming eyes down to their breastbones, which were still a good handspan above her own head. The silver one gave an open-mouthed smile, its tongue lashing the air with a flick of spittle. She drew back, nearly as far as the cliff would allow. There was one way out, and one way only.
No need to frighten her. At ease, my friends.
It was no one voice that spoke, but a choir. At each word, the pitch leapt or fell. One voice fell away, another rose to join its fellows. Though the voices were legion, they belonged to one speaker, and wolf, pig, and man alike stepped aside as he emerged from the trees. He wore robes of red and white, fine in their making and heavy on his slender frame. From his toe to his shoulder they traveled, 2 crimson stripes forming a V at his waist, while another stripe circled his feet. A nobleman's hunting gloves concealed his long-fingered hands. A downward-pointed hood shrouded his head, and though he faced the sun, a web of shadows weaved over his features, masking them in night's darkness. The man of many voices spread his arms, offering a gentleman's bow.
My lady, please forgive their insolence. They are but loyal servants of the faith.
Damn your faith, she hissed. Kill me, or begone. I won't go back. He drew back a step, fingers spreading over his heart.
Death hunts you, lady, but I am not he, though I would stay his hand if you take mine.
A chill gripped her bones, then swiftly congealed in the pit of her stomach. Still she held her glare. That's very kind of you. She took a broad stride backwards, hair prickling as she sensed the edge at her heels. But you've done enough already.
What I have done so far will not suffice.
said the man of many voices.
"Your restoration is not yet complete. No other remedy exists but ours."
Remedy, she thought. She looked down at her arm, opened the fist she didn't remember clenching. The veins in her wrist were darker now, nearly black already, as many voices had warned that they would be. But no, there had to be another way than his. She shook her head. "You're lying."
"A serpent lies, a king lies, but not I. Would I, who shielded you, deceive you so? And does your very blood conspire with me?"
The man followed her gaze, or seemed to, with his eyes in the shadows, then dismissed the accusation with a wave.
"No, lady. I would see you healed, made strong. You and your mate will bring the world to joy."
Her mate? The man had no right to call Jardin that, even if it happened to be true in a sense. "He's stronger than you." Heat flared in her heart. She took a half-step forward, linked her hands at the thumbs, and drew them toward her breast. The heat swelled and spread across the inside of her flesh. "You won't break him."
"And still you manage to misunderstand,"
the man said with a multi-hued sigh. If he saw what was coming, he made no move to resist.
"No soul within my care will ever break, but flesh upon those rocks below just may. Is it not time we put an end to this?"
Another updraft, cool with the waterfall's mist, rose up and surrounded her. She took the air deep into her lungs, felt it flow down through the roiling pit of her stomach before whipping up into her fingertips. Then she stilled her breath and locked eyes with the man, as best she could, through his mask of shadows. "If you insist." With a vengeful cry, she thrust her palms forward, thumbs and forefingers forming a perfect vertical triangle. The fire, her fire, gushed back through her heart, then out through her hands. Her fingers' triangle became a doorway between seen and unseen, what a half-forgotten lullaby had once called Hand's Realm and Heart's Realm. Through that doorway there came a great eruption of flame, all pouring toward the man before her. He stood like a statue, still masked in night's darkness, even in the firelight. The burning wave washed over his fine robes, bathing him in pure red rage. And then they passed on, leaving him utterly untouched. She should have known better, she told herself. She shouldn't have wasted her strength. For a moment she dared to hope that the flames might at least consume the beasts behind him, but even that hope perished, as the blaze turned to air the moment it left his back. With a patient sigh, he looked away and slowly shook his head.
"Your heart will be the envy of the world," he said as he reached for her, "but know that it cannot avail you here."
For an instant, the sun split his mask and cast light on a victorious smile. One way, only one way out, not his way, not ever again. She closed her eyes, clasped her hands, and retreated a single step. The wind greeted her with a cold, sudden gust as she tilted back and fell. Then it swelled, filled her ears, wrapped around her like a gentleman's coat. Many voices cursed in unison above, but the wind shut out their cries with a whistling song as the waterfall's rumble sang harmony. Surrounded by the lullaby, she fell ever further, to a place without wolves, without screams, without death in her tracks, only the song and its crescendo as it bade her farewell.